This episode of Wizards of Waverly Pod is brought to you by HelloFresh. With HelloFresh, you get farm, and that's how he showed my mom love. Now, I'm not the best cook, but I am Italian, and now with HelloFresh, I get to cook for my wife and show her how much I love her. We also get to cook together. The meals are delicious and so fast and so easy to make. Go to HelloFresh.com/wizardsfree and use code WIZARDSFREE for free breakfast for life. One breakfast item per box while subscription is active. With code WIZARDSFREE, America's #1 meal kit.
David has to do it because he has the epic voiceover voice. It's good.
Wait, maybe we can have everybody. That was epic. Maybe we can have everybody guess. Why don't you just say?
We're the real princesses of New Jersey.
Okay, good. So, if you didn't know who that was, it's Tiffany Thornton.
Hello, Tiffany. Season 1, episode 9, movies for like a hot second.
It's fun.
Well, who didn't? And what was that? Like 2007, 2008? Like, I mean,
think so.
We all had some pretty bad hair back then.
For people who are just listening, Tiffany's hair is perfect.
It's gorgeous.
Thank you. Thank you.
It's a gorgeous blonde, the hair, the closer to God kind of thing.
Well, you know, I'm in Arkansas. It's a little humid today, so it has fallen a little flat. But if I do this, if I do that, then it's like
off to the side, to the left. I'm going to do that with my hair now.
Yeah, let's see it. There it is. Gorgeous.
The hair. What was your experience like? Had you, because we shot the first season in the vacuum, like it hadn't been on yet. Were you aware of the show? Did you know people? Did you audition? What was that like? And go.
This is all for
I
Wizards.
did audition. Yeah. I auditioned for anything I ever got. I was never just like given a role for anything. I auditioned, and I had been auditioning for the Disney Channel over and over and over.
Your actual audition, like what it was like.
I do.
Yeah.
I remember it was on the lot where you guys filmed. I ended up being in like the same circle of friends as Jen and David afterwards. We kind of all were in the same success together, sort of. So we did hang out afterwards. But yeah, I mean, I tested for Sharpay.
I could see that.
High School Musical.
Yeah.
So bad. So I didn't grow up watching Broadway. I just was like a typical Texas high school cheerleader, sang the national anthem and stuff, but I didn't know any Broadway songs. And they had us use the song "You Can't Stop the Beat" for the audition. And if you're not a Broadway fan and you've never heard that song and you're auditioning like 15 auditions a week, at the time I was auditioning all the time, I had no chance to memorize that song. It was so bad. So bombed that, but that's fine. They still liked me a little, I guess. And then I tested for Debbie Ryan's part on Sweet Life on Deck. Funny enough, last audition for that, and then walked over to the table read for what became Sunny with a Chance, like for our first thing. So I guess, and then I guest starred on Raven. I guest starred on Hannah Montana. I guest starred on you guys' show. So I was like making the rounds. I guess they were just trying to find a place where I fit best. I don't know.
But I remember that about
I remember all of it.
Disney Channel too, is like, because I did that as well, where it's like you have to break into it, where they like get like they start working with you, and then when they like you, they want to find a place for you. Because I remember when I was really young, they wouldn't even come like let me audition. They were just like, nah, we don't get her. None of the casting people really knew me for their shows. So like back with like the Sweet Life, That's So Raven, like when I finally got a pilot with them, then I was in like the family like you were, where they were trying to find a spot for me. They were trying to find something that made sense, like a character where it worked.
They searched for Tawny for like 2 years, but they couldn't find anyone that they liked enough. And so yeah, mine was kind of the opposite of yours. I just remember auditioning for That's So Raven like 20 times, and I always got a parking ticket because, you know, it was all the way across the lot.
Oh, God. Yeah, that auditioning for that one was not fun because the parking situation, because nowadays auditioning is totally different because it's all self-tapes. But back then, like especially Fox.
The worst.
Hated having to drive down there.
Oh, my God. And then later, too, because they used to have where you could park on the lot. And then your audition would always be across the entire lot. And you would always be in heels or something. Waiting room. Yes. They would have a box of Band-Aids in the waiting room because they knew people were going to have bloody feet from walking in their heels across the entire. And then they stopped doing that. And then you'd have to walk a mile from the mall and then all the way back to the back of the thing. It's just bullshit.
I've always done in-person auditions. I don't know that I would enjoy, because I enjoyed the process of auditioning.
Yeah.
I love that rush that you would get, meeting the people, creating the bond with the casting directors and producers and people you get to see over and over again. It would feel so strange to me to not have that connection. Because for me, my favorite part of the industry was the people.
Yeah.
So you are like the high school cheerleader, but not in like the typical teen movie bitchy way. You're in the way that like, you're just, everybody loves you. And like, I know that sounds like a backhanded compliment, but I don't mean it like one. I mean it in the sense of like, you're the one that pumps everybody up and gets everybody, what turned into So Random. What was that audition process like? What was that set like? I know it wasn't always the most amazing.
We had to do 3 sketch characters that we had to come up with on our own.
Yeah, kind of like SNL, right?
Yes, like SNL. And I was not a writer, so I came up with like the 3 worst sketch characters that I wanted them to be good, but they were not good. To cast our show, amazing, so sweet. I bombed it. I didn't know what I was doing, and somehow I got a call back. Before I heard I got a call back, I went to church that night, actually, out in LA. There was a church I went to that had service on Tuesday. And I remember saying at church, I was praying and I was like, okay, God, I'm going to go back home. I'm going to go to medical here. I could be like helping people. If you want me to be here in LA, you're going to have to write it in the sky in pink. Like, because I'm done. Like I've exhausted myself trying to like be something. Like, who cares? Whatever. It was a great experience. I'll go back home. I'll get married, have kids. It's fine. That night when I got home, I had an email from my manager. Oh, you have a callback for, it was called Sketchpad at the time. And I was like, you're confused. I was terrible. She's like, I already have your appointment set up with your acting coach in the morning. She's going to help you come up with new sketch characters because Cheryl said they were terrible.
Thanks, Cheryl.
But they love you and they want you to come back in for it. And so I'm thinking like, funny God, like that's so funny. You have me like, I was like a beauty pageant girl that like didn't know the countries of the world, whatever. And then I can't remember what the other 2 were, but they laughed so hard, you know, and it was a producer session. And then like 2 days after that, I was on the 21st floor at the channel and there were 4 girls auditioning for Tawny and 4 girls auditioning for Sunny and a few for Grady and everybody. And I remember they had us improv together, and Sterling, who ended up being, what was his character's name? How terrible.
Girl, I have no idea. When we were
the
on
Heartthrob.
Yes. Yeah. I'm sure all the fans are like.
Anyway, so we improv'd together and that was super fun. I read the script with Demi. We went in my final audition for Sweet Life on Deck and walked from that on that lot, walked over to At Me, which was like,
that's a great week.
I don't know if that's true. But it is a huge leap. And as a kid, people be like, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I love burgers and like fried pickles. So modeling
as every good Texas girl does.
That's right. So, but I always loved to be the center of attention. I love being on stage. I didn't get stage fright. Theater was never my thing. Has like an acting school. It's on the weekends. And she used to take people to this huge competition called IMTA, the International Model and Talent Association. Back then it was owned by a woman named Helen. And so it was like these small town people with the opportunity to be in the industry. Now it's corporately owned. So I wouldn't necessarily suggest it be the top, like number 1 or whatever for like my age group, which was exciting because you don't know what your chances are to be out in LA. And I met my agent at the time. He was my agent for like a couple months, but and I lived at Oakwood Apartments.
Where everybody lived.
It was too.
On Barham. Does that exist?
So they renamed it. Yeah. They renamed it. I forgot to what they renamed it for. But were you there? Because I've talked about before how like Mitchell Musso was there at the time. Frankie Muniz would come with his cars. Hilary Duff was there during like the Lizzie McGuire era. Were you there during that era?
Right. I don't know because I never made friends with anyone at Oakwood. I did my senior year of high school at a private school.
Probably better because I remember Josh Hutcherson like having his girlfriend there and all that, and like Angus from 2.5 Men. It was weird. It was a weird child actor land. It was strange.
Everybody there kind of had the same purpose, so that felt nice. But yeah, I lived there my senior year and I was very fortunate to book pretty consistently. About every 3 months, I would book a commercial or a guest star, co-star.
What was the first job when you booked something?
My first job was a Singular Wireless commercial.
Nice.
That doesn't exist.
I don't think Singular Wireless does exist anymore. We're all old, dear. Act accordingly.
You know, it's fun. Delicious.
Yeah.
There's 500 people who auditioned for that, you know? I mean, when you go on a commercial audition, correct me if I'm wrong, but there's like 500 people for that one thing, and then the callback is 200 people, you know.
But
you could make a
oh
lot
my
of
God,
money.
you made your whole year. There were some people
Yeah, so I think it was regional. I think my first one was regional, and that's big because it's not like a local commercial.
But the network
regional. And then
national,
national was like, you're killing it. Especially if it was like a car commercial that went national, you were making more than a television show.
Yeah, you were printing
And back
money.
then it was like, they'd take 5 of us in at one time, and you'd all say the line like one after the other.
Yeah, no, it was full cattle call.
This episode of Wizards of Waverly Pod is brought to you by HelloFresh. With HelloFresh, you get farm fresh, pre-portioned ingredients, seasonal recipes delivered right to your doorstep. Now, Italians show love through Italian, and that's how he showed my mom love. Now, I'm not the best cook, but I am Italian, and now with HelloFresh, I get to cook for my wife and show her some healthy options like over 30 calorie-smart and protein-smart recipes each week. Thing arrives pre-portioned right to your doorstep. It's less hassle and less food waste. Isn't that great? Breakfast for life. One breakfast item per box while subscription is active. That's free with code WIZARDSFREE, America's #1 meal kit.
Like I said, I know we kind of, David and our brains jump around all the time.
Our brains go many different directions.
Yes.
Mine too.
So, I mean, because you did Wizards before Sunny and So Random, right?
Yes.
Okay, so what do you remember about shooting that episode? Do you remember anything? I know it was just like 1 week out of your life. Like,
I do.
Okay, what do you remember about it?
I remember thinking like David was hilarious. I just remember thinking like, man, that is like the quintessential like dad for TV.
Me?
Like, you want to hug? Yes.
You're talking about me. I thought you were talking about David Henry.
I just remember thinking like, man, his voice is so cool. Like David Henry had was something about deductive reasoning because we were talking about like a math. My first time experiencing a live audience. And I remember thinking like, wow, they really love their audience. Like they love being here. And then I remember thinking like, Selena, she was like this tiny, young, beautiful, like quiet thing. And I remember thinking like, she's so quiet. I wonder how that works for the channel. Cause she wasn't like the quintessential like Disney
like Hannah Montana,
yeah.
Miley Cyrus had a lot of energy at all times.
But that's what a lot of people don't really know about Selena is like she's not. She is
very
more.
reserved.
She is more reserved. She is more like inward. She is more. I mean, she's not shy by any means, but she definitely takes time to like warm up to people, and she takes time to. She's more observant than she is like jump in the middle of things. You know what I mean? Like she's very observant and sensitive and like introverted.
So beautiful because that's what made the show so different. I think that's why it was so successful was because it set itself apart on the show. Her personality led it to be different. The thing about Disney Channel is some people like to hate on it and be like, oh, Disney Channel isn't real acting, blah, blah, blah. Okay. And why it's so animated, this is what I've decided. I didn't ask the up and ups, but this was back when I hadn't had 4 kids and my brain really worked.
No, we all had to, Sorry, I was just going to say we all had to kind of justify it for ourselves, you know?
So for me, I was excited to be granted that because I'm a bubbly person, but also it's kids coming off of watching cartoons. Now they're watching real life people interested with the set decorating and the colors and the personality and the jumping from scene to scene. And it's a specific art. It's very hard to book shows like that because it's not.
I looked at it for me.
It was like theater.
It was like theater. I'm not doing theater. How is doing live action for you?
I love the fact that Wizards,
live audience, not live action.
Wizards was your first sitcom, right? In front of an audience.
Yeah.
So what was it different going from theater to?
I mean, for me, it just felt like you just jumped into it and it just, I don't know. It was like living the dream.
Yeah, because it intimidates some people.
I guess I didn't know any different.
Yeah.
You know?
It's funny because, and I know you said you were older. You were 21 at the time. By the way, I had my first daughter when I was 21. Crazy.
On set. And I just like could see like the future mom in you in the best possible way because you just have that like beautiful maternal energy to you. Which is such like a stunning thing. Sometimes it's just
it happens.
Well,
it's a fake ID at any point in time.
The funniest. And it was over by Koi.
Oh God.
Area. There's this club called Area.
Well, you even saying Koi, I'm like, that's such a specific era.
From Utah of this girl. Her name was Ashrat Sabag. Like, do I look like my name is Ashrat? Like,
absolutely.
How do you even spell that? So I'm like thinking, well, I'm going with this like quarterback from USC, just got into the NFL. Like, I don't need to know what this thing says. So we get to the door and I give it to them. And she was blonde. I mean, we kind of looked alike. And they're like, what's your birthday? And I was like,
Oh no.
I like just froze. I forgot to memorize the birthday, which is like rule number 1 if you're using a fake ID,
Yes,
which is
that's
a real
true.
ID. You know the birthday.
Yeah.
And they immediately put this like black X on my hand. And I guess Matt, it's funny because that was the only date we went on, but he was like, well, she doesn't get in, then I'm not going in. And they were like, dang it, like we need him in here. So they just like marked me up so that no one would like serve me drinks or whatever. And yeah, I still
I
got
love
in.
that happened.
Koi was interesting. So my boyfriend at the time was the bar back. He eventually became the
geez.
bartender.
Okay.
And I was one of 4 hostesses. Lost her mind. And I was like, what?
This is so good. This is the
Did you
dish.
tell her? Did you tell her to tip her hostesses and maybe should have gotten on the back patio?
I should have told her about it. I got fired. No, and then
fair.
There's more.
I can't remember if it was Mark Wahlberg or Donnie Wahlberg. One of them came in frequently and ended up like long-term dating one of the waitresses. And let me tell you, the waiters and waitresses at Koi made 6 figures working 3 nights a week.
Jeez
Wow.
Louise.
Oh my God.
It was
Listen, hold on a
insane.
second, Tiffany. There were so many names that you
Oh,
dropped.
she's dropping so many names, it's making sounds. No, so we do this thing. We have this like merch wand from the show that we drop whenever we drop a name. But good Lord, we lost track of how many names.
Yes, and I was going to touch on that. So I remember, I almost said auditioning, interviewing for the hostess position because it was a very like hard to get job because you got paid so well. It was only open in the evening. It was super great. And I remember just thinking like, I just want people to have an enjoyable experience when they come into this restaurant. I'd never worked in like a restaurant setting. I'd worked at McDonald's before, but not like a restaurant setting. And so it was weird. Like people were like, my birthday's on Valentine's Day. And the girl that was supposed to work canceled Valentine's Day, which was my birthday because the other girl quit. But I just did it like gladly. And I just remember the manager being like, thank you for being a good person. And I was like,
Okay,
sad that this is so rare.
but this
love
is
that.
the thing that I
Yeah.
love.
Also,
Yeah.
this is super like side note, but I watched Titanic in theaters like probably 13 times as a kid. I thought it was the greatest movie ever, which I was in
It
6th
is.
grade. Why was I watching a movie like that? Leonardo DiCaprio. I always thought he was just like this smaller human being. Like, I don't know. He would come into Koi with his Boston, whatever, baseball
Always
cap
wearing a
on,
hat and
he-
glasses inside. I've seen him a few times at
Always.
restaurants and stuff. Very nice, but very reserved.
Mysterious.
Yeah.
Mysterious, but like hot mysterious. Anyway, I thought I'd say
Okay,
You can drop the
I'm
one.
bummed because my one Leonardo DiCaprio sighting was in New Orleans,
Oh.
and it was at a bar, and it was when he was shooting. Oh, he was shooting Django. He was
Okay.
shooting Django Unchained. So he had that awful beard. So I didn't get to see it because that was the movie. That was the movie that I was like, oh, you can do this on film. Like that was the movie that I saw when I was a kid that like changed my whole world.
I love that movie.
So I went to Los Angeles instead of New York because of that movie. So, but instead I got like homeless Leo rather than like Jack Dawson Leo.
I
I felt so bummed.
I said so. My Yulia, my wife, took all of the Spider-Man cartoons and put them into German scripts and stuff. So she's a big Spider-Man fan and likes Tobey Maguire. Now, at a restaurant I was at, Tobey Maguire came up to me and wanted me to take some pictures with the kids. And I looked at him and I said, I'm eating comedy. So then he's
good.
friends with him. So we went over and said hi and talked to him. He was so sweet and nice. And Leonardo just was there the whole time with his hat and his glasses. He didn't say anything.
Yeah.
He was very, but
No.
and he looked
very
at you,
hot.
and he looked at you and he goes, I'm eating.
hot.
I'm eating.
Comedy.
Right.
Yeah. I think he did take the glasses off at some point, and then I fainted after that. So I don't.
Oh, the baby
remember.
blues, baby.
It's
Okay,
the-
go
I'm
ahead.
so, I apologize to everybody, but that's so interesting to me because when you're going somewhere and someone is the host or someone works there or whatever, if you're not nice, it all comes around. It's all cyclical.
Well, people
you know?
are people. And that's the thing. That's
Yeah.
what I've always loved about you. I'm going to gush about you for a second because I feel like when we were on the channel, when you're off the channel, you have always been what you see is what you get. And that's what I mean. Like, I know in the South, like, trust your heart energy is, to me, that means like you can see like the goodness in people, in all people, no matter whether they're somebody or they're nobody to the rest of the world. But you also have this integrity and strength and it's like pick yourself up by the bootstraps that you show up when your ankle's broken because you said that you would. You're a person of your been. What you see is what you get. And you've always been yourself no matter what environment you've been in. And it's one of the most like, it's to me, you are the best part of being a Southern girl. And I love that about you. And you've always been that way. You know what I mean? Okay, I'm done gushing. I'm done gushing.
So sweet.
Okay, this is actually something I wanted to touch on. It's funny, our sermon this past Sunday, my father-in-law is a pastor, and he was saying, like, what we do should not define who we are.
Absolutely.
Who we are should spur on what we do.
Yeah.
Right? But in the entertainment industry, that gets backwards, and understandably so. People get idolized and stuff. But I just remember I wanted to make sure I touched on this. If you were to ask me my favorite part of acting, especially for the Disney Channel, it would be the people. I never wanted someone to show up to set, whether they were the second AD or the director. People on one side of the camera get puffed up to the point where they think they're the most important person, making the audience laugh during the break. If they weren't there, we wouldn't have a show. Like, you're not more important than them. And
1,000%.
so that's how I feel in life, especially beings. They're serving people, you know? And so my favorite part of acting was getting to be a family with like 60 people. You know, you're there for 10 to 14 hours a day, 5 days a week. And then all of a sudden you just break up. None of us really see the end coming for the show. I think we kind of all hope that it will just go forever.
Yeah.
And then one day you're like, oh, I'm not going to see these people anymore. And yes, as a cast, there's camaraderie, you hope. But I felt that camaraderie with everybody that worked on our set too, and shout the line when we would forget it. You know, I miss Kim.
Together, and it's really nice. And I think a lot of our crew worked on your thing, because I think our second AD, Ron, was on your
Yes.
But no, I mean,
our first season we were on the a lot in Burbank.
Yeah.
And then for second and third season we moved over to where you
and I think the reason I love acting is because it's a group of artists coming together to make something bigger. And I think where the ego comes from is because actors mistake the fact that a lot of that artistry gets placed upon actors because we just happen to be the one in front of the camera, right? Like the makeup, the hair, the costumes, the lighting, all of these things get placed upon this vessel. And so they think it's about them. And it's like, no, you're just a receptacle of that art form. That's it. Right. You know what I mean? And it's your job to carry it.
It's easy to get caught up in that. Like I had a hairstylist that was for Tawny, and I did not like the way she did my hair. And we tried to work around it and try to like do my hair the way I want, which who cares how I want my hair? Hello, I'm just a person like playing a person, whatever. But I remember eventually they let her go and they brought in a different person that did my hair the way that I liked. At the time I was 21 years old. I wasn't married. I didn't have children. I was sad because she had 3 kids and I didn't know her financial situation. Eventually she and her husband got divorced. Was I part of the cause of financial strain for their family that the dominoes fell? I don't know. But when I moved to Arkansas and stuff, but I regret that because I didn't think of her feelings, and I don't ever want to do that to someone. My other regret is that, and I don't know if either of you have been through this, I switched agents, bigger ones, William Morris. I don't know who the big ones are anymore, but
they've all morphed together.
Yeah.
Okay. So I remember that was crappy. Like they had worked so hard for me to get me to the place I was at, and I just like left them. Yeah. Now I've spoken, especially to my agent since then, and she's so sweet and she doesn't hold hard feelings, but if I could go back in time, I wouldn't have done that.
Yeah.
The wonderful thing, Tiffany, is that you learned from those lessons.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You learned a lot about what it was, your behavior affecting someone else or their situation. And I really do feel that everything's relative, but your, you know what I mean? What I'm saying, that you learned from it.
I'm a big proponent that because I understand that like Southern Baptist like flogging guilt that you carry around with things like that. You know what I mean? Where like, you know, the I'm so bad thing that just, you know, you're taught from a young age. But the thing is, you are street, right? So for me, you start by going to that person and apologizing. And then to me, you truly atone for that by never repeating that mistake.
Yeah, amending the behavior.
Yeah, you amend.
Absolutely.
So you verbally say, I'm sorry. But the real apology comes from in never repeating that behavior. Because the thing is
Exactly.
we're human beings. You know, we wouldn't need God if, you know, we were perfect and didn't need forgiveness. We didn't need that kind of forgiveness. If we were perfect, you know, we would have nothing to atone for. And so the thing is to learn and to say, I'm sorry, and to atone by behavior changes and not just with words.
Yeah.
I think that's the biggest thing.
Those are
Yeah, and I
really-
think I've never said out loud to any audience that I regret letting go of my agent and my manager. My manager even more so. She was like a second mom to me. And I
Yeah.
just got caught up in the place I was at in my life with my fiance at the time, and I just was fed into certain thought processes, and I take responsibility for that. But if she ever watches this, she was the most incredible manager and I loved her. And if I could change anything, it would be leaving them. And you're right. I tell my kids all the time, they're like, I'm sorry, Mom. You know, did you clean your room? Oh, I'm sorry, Mom. I'm like, well, if you're really sorry, then your behavior will change.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Actions speak a lot louder than words. And
Yeah.
and the fact that you're like, you know, wanting to do this on like a really public forum and is speaks volumes as well, you know, but also too, like the behavior has to change as well, you know, which it sounds like you're already working towards that and passing that along to you've now made this complete life change from being an actress and
go and not be in the entertainment business anymore.
and you've lived a lot of life has happened. So you can get into or not get into as much as you want to.
And we were engaged for 2 years and I got married. We wrapped in September, our third season of the show. And then I think that summer, so our app had that she was going to get the help that she needed, of course. And so that was everybody's first concern was her getting the help. It wasn't, what about, because somebody whispers pregnant in the wind and boom. So, because Chris took me to the Dominican Republic and he was bilingual and he spoke Spanish for 2 weeks and I came back pregnant. So
that and tequila.
So I'm dealing with things. Although we were engaged for 2 years, we didn't know each other as well as we should have probably to get married. But we were both originally from the South and just kind of wanted that life. And my team saying, well, they haven't decided on the show yet. If they decide y'all will come back and then you tell them you're pregnant, then and they haven't told you yet, then they're going to decide not to. And I remember that being the moment where I was like, am I going to live up to like morality of letting the channel know, or I'm going to screw them over and wait for them to do all the work of picking up the show and then me be like hiding a bum? Like, I'm not going to do that. And that was the end of my career. But I was going to screw over an entire channel.
But that's a lot of pressure to put on you for just having a normal lifestyle like moment that's really important that you've wanted your whole life. That's a lot of like
but also
pressure to put on your shoulders.
What a wonderful show to yourself of your integrity and to who you were, that you went to Judy and you told her what was going on, which is wonderful. I love welcome. That. I'm going to go back just for a second, all the way back to when you said you were auditioning for, and Demi was there auditioning as well, right?
Yes. She had already done Camp Rock, so I think they knew they wanted her for the lead, but they wanted to have her read with other characters for Tawny and Channing, Chad Dillon Cooper.
You found it. That's good.
I was just curious about that because it's interesting. At what point do you not audition? You know what I mean? Where you're like, okay, you're the person.
Everything.
Yeah, no, I know. I just am a little envious of you. The fact that you've been like, okay, I don't need this anymore. Then you can't be an actor and live your life. But I do like the fact that you were like, I'm.
And I can speak from my own experience. I still struggle with it because I've done it since I was so young. And so I don't know if you have maybe a more realized relationship with it because you were older when you started doing it. But I do feel like it's so ingrained in me. I know it doesn't define me and I know I don't need it, but I do love it. And I do feel like I'm my best version of myself. And I'm a big believer that God gives all of us a purpose and that he doesn't hire. And that hasn't gone away.
But in what way do you fulfill that? Praises to God and everyone's joining in. That feels the same to me. Not that I'm performing. I literally feel like I go blind when I'm on the worship team. People will be like, oh, I was in the congregation today. Did you fulfill that? For instance, I love instant gratification. I mean, I think
Who
everyone
doesn't?
does.
Yeah.
But,
Look at social
and
media.
I think with acting, especially when you're on a comedy, there's a lot of instant gratification. Half of it is because someone has a sign that says laugh, but you think you're funny.
Yeah.
So I've been doing it for a long time. For me, I took it on as a job as an adult. I never auditioned for parts where there were a lot of cussing. Not that I didn't used to cuss like a sailor. I did. I grew out of that, but I did used to, and I don't anymore. But unless I like stub my toe, but don't tell my husband. But you know, you evolve in your life. For me, it was a job, and so I got to live this awesome life. I made great money. I have nothing negative to say about my time on the channel, and I understand. I don't have cable television. I don't watch entertainment news. I don't read the magazines, and my heart breaks for those people. I cannot fathom that. For me personally, I have nothing but great things to say about my time on the channel because that's what I prayed for. That's what I wanted.
Yeah.
Did we get paid less per episode than somebody that was on an ABC Family show? Sure, but did we do 26 episodes? And let me also say really quick, Disney catapults you as a young actor more than I believe any other catalyst.
Yeah, it does.
That's at least back then. So for me, oh yes, they worked us hard. We did hey, I'm Tiffany Thornton and you're watching Disney Channel on the weekend when we were supposed to have 2 days off, but they were like paying us, flying us first class, giving us per diem, getting us a driver.
You got to fly first class? What? Disney.
Was my contract.
I'm kidding. Okay.
I worked with amazing people. I was treated with respect. I loved what I did. I got paid very well, maybe in comparison to like a movie, no, but in life, got paid really well. And I know that God fulfills those needs in my heart in other ways. Like earlier today, I was helping a friend clean an estate here in Hot Springs, Arkansas. She has VRBOs and rentals and stuff, and I help her clean. Why? Because I love to clean, and it's easy money for groceries. You can buy a lot of groceries in Arkansas, way more than you can in California, and it's instant gratification. You make the bed, it looks great. You walk away. Who cares? So
listen, if you're ever in LA and you want to clean, come on over.
I will. So I will get your checkbook ready.
No, but so you've made this transition from, being an actor in Hollywood and getting to experience like being around all these people that, that, like I said, society idolizes or honors or whatever, and then completely shifting gears of being a preacher's wife and being a mom. And so how is that like alter ego used to be?
Question.
Like, you know what I mean? Do they know what mama used to do?
Yeah.
My kids do not think that it's cool. I mean,
of course they don't.
To show them when they were like 4 and 5 and they were like, what is this? What are you doing? And they ask them. And I'm like, dang it. Because when you're an adult and you're on it and you think, oh, one day I'll have kids. And they'll be like, you're so cool.
How old are your kids?
They do not care. Almost 11, 9, 4, and almost 2. Wow. It's crazy. So they do think it's super cool that I know certain people who are famous. But I'm like, how do you think I know them?
Who are the people that geek out about?
Oh, yeah.
Like who are relevant to the
Alexa.
Okay.
Alexa Vega, they think is so cool. I know her because they watch Spy Kids.
Of
and
course.
They think Spy Kids is like coolest movie.
Yeah.
And that's really it. Because I'm not like we don't. I mean, I'm telling the truth. Like we don't listen to secular music. So they don't. If they know pop songs, it's not my fault. Like I don't know. So they don't ask. Like they don't know about that kind of stuff. They kind of.
I directed an episode of that, and they just actually made they made like a special, like a movie of the Thundermans. Cool. They went back and
so they're just now getting into that, and I don't know any of the new people. I know the ones from like a decade ago. But my transition into it was. I was desperate to save my marriage. That is why I left LA. Now, my reason for getting out of the industry was just I had 2 babies pretty much back to back. And you can't, I was very pregnant for very many months. So it's like, what are you going to do? This from heaven if he could shout it. And I became a recluse. That's how I dealt with the stress. And then he dealt with it by partying. And it just got to a point where it was like I had to leave. We had to get out of LA because it's like everything sinful is just served up on a silver platter there, which that's the world. And
beat Southern Baptist mama. She's like, oh, Sodom and Gomorrah.
Don't you look back, girl. Gonna turn you a pillow of salt. Just fall to the ground. Yeah. So I left. It took him a little while longer to leave, about 4 months. And I had every reason for us to divorce, even biblical cause. And I just felt like the Lord, listen, there's no physical abuse going on. I do not condone that in any instance. But I hope that people know that when you're having trouble, broken parts, even if infidelity has occurred, even if financial strain is abundant, even if you argue every day, if you're both willing to do the work and put that work in, and you've prayed about it, and you just won, that you don't have to choose anymore. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
I just remember when we were separated for 4 months thinking, man, if I had biblical cause to be done with this, I would be done. And then I had to for who he was as a father, because I had children with him. And I knew he was a good dad. And I knew he was just deep in this sin that he was living in. And so we went to the counseling. We got to a better place. I had a radio show here, like a morning radio show here in Hot Springs that I did every day. And he stayed home with the boys and cleaned the house. And he went out one night to do the fantasy football thing or whatever with his guy friends an hour away in Little Rock, and didn't make it home that night. And so our boys were very little. They were 1.5 and 3. And that was really, it was tough because I think when I lived in LA, I had pictured that in the back of my mind so many times when he would go out and not come home.
Yeah.
But once we got out of that hedge of protection that night, it was unexpected.
Yeah.
I'm really sorry I'm really sorry that happened.
Thank you. Most gut-wrenching thing I think could happen to a person. Not that Chris was replaceable, but I did get married again. Do you know what I'm saying? So it's got to be different for his parents. Now, I say he had a drinking problem. He did. But he could have told people that I was a crazy bee and he wouldn't have been lying. I probably drove him to drink half the time because I was like, crazy. I mean, I'm from Texas.
No, but I
don't want to make it seem like I'm saying like he had this problem and I was perfect. Not even close. I wish I had learned how to communicate as a wife better. Always looking back, hindsight's 20/20. You wish you would have tried other things.
There's always two sides to a story.
You do the best that you can, and you know,
we did the best we could, and that's the part where it's hard to have lost him, but I know he wouldn't have wanted his boys to see that problem in him. And I think it was by the grace of God that he went home to heaven when he did. I always say either this world was too much for him or he was too much for this world. And God just knew that it was time for him to go home and all these. So we ended up scheduling it to go to St. Kitts, which we had never heard of, but somebody said, oh, it's akin to St. Thomas. You'll like it, whatever. So we go there. We didn't do much research. We planned it last minute. We get there. We walk into the resort, and there's this huge map of the island of St. Kitts. And underneath it says St. Christopher's. And I'm like, I asked the person that worked there, what is this island? And they were like, that's the island for Christopher.
Wow.
My first husband's name was Chris. So just stuff like that has happened so frequently throughout the years that I've been with Josiah that I know that Chris had a hand in it from heaven, and that's comforting. But it's also comforting to know that he's not having to deal with that addiction here any longer.
How did Joe come into your life?
Story.
Yeah.
So when Chris and I moved to Arkansas after those 4 months of what...
you couldn't leave Hollywood behind completely. You had to just carry it with you a little bit.
Yeah, I remember getting a phone call from TMZ. Like, do you have a comment? And I was like...
Oh, God.
No, I don't. And my agent took care of it. But yeah, when we decided to move... back to Arkansas, his parents, his dad's also a pastor. Chris's dad was a pastor.
Your life is surrounded by pastors.
I love those pastors' kids. The first one was like the wild one. The second one is like the sweetest, never said a bad word. Like literally an angel just whoop, from heaven. Like there he is. I don't know why he likes me because I'm super crazy, but I'll keep him
because balance.
I know why. You're not super crazy. You're awesome.
Aw, thank you. I do tell him you'll never have to wonder how I feel.
What you see is what you get.
So with Chris, his parents were like, we can't counsel you. Like we're in this situation. His mom was the one that helped me leave him when I left, for that summer. So they set us up with these pastors, Eric and his wife, Carol Ann Capacey, here in Hot Springs. And they pastored a Baptist church. And Chris's parents were Nazarene. So that was like a big deal. We were going to this Baptist church for counseling. But Chris grew up on the mission field, Puerto Rico, Dominican Republic. He's seen behind the curtain of ministry. And so he was very picky about who he would take advice from that was a pastor especially. But he loved Eric Capacey, loved him. So we started counseling with them, and like hardcore counseling, like the depths of the worst parts of our marriage is where we were when we started counseling with them. And they were largely responsible. They know all my baggage. So like I married their kid after Chris
That's very
passed away.
interesting.
What who you're going to be? You show up
It's not
you show up in
counseling for
the
your
pretty
marriage.
floral dress, and you're trying to put your best foot forward rather than starting off with them knowing all your dirt and all your
but if
baggage.
clearly they
Like,
love
that's
you and accept
beautiful.
you for who you are. So
Yeah, that's
great.
beautiful to start off with them truly knowing you.
Yeah. Except when they know all.
You're so funny. You're adorable. Okay, so are we doing a crystal ball?
Yeah,
Here we
hopefully
go.
it's a good one. Let's
Stand
see.
by
Let's see. Okay,
and
if this works because it's witchcraft. Do you want me to pick another one?
Sure. I mean, I could try to come up with
I was
something,
told
but
it. But there's good and
yeah,
bad.
I've heard plenty of things
I know.
like that.
Yes.
Let's make sure she's okay going back to church.
Let me say though, like it's like you said earlier, as a Christian, like if I was perfect, I wouldn't need Jesus. I wouldn't be a Christian.
Yeah.
So like nobody's perfect. That doesn't exist. Like God is a God of second chances and redemption and forgiveness and mercy and grace.
Yeah,
so it's
but
all
I also
good.
don't want you to be like doing witchcraft on here. What was your most memorable moment on
the
Wizards?
memorable moment.
I mean, I kind of mentioned it already at the beginning. I just remember being so impressed by how you guys loved your live audience so well. I remember thinking like the audience guys I don't know.
Yeah.
And I just remember thinking like, this really feels like a family. It feels like the place you want to be on Friday night.
Thank you so much for being here with us and taking the time. And we really appreciate you. And we're just so happy to get, a little time to visit with you.
Yeah,
This was
and
wonderful.
Thank you for sharing like yourself and just like a piece of where you're at in life right now. And I wish you and your beautiful family and husband, kids, everything, all the best.
Thanks, guys. It was so good to see y'all. It was like
good
an
to see you
old
too.
family reunion.
I know,
Yeah.
right? You had to
Literally-
coordinate a whole gaggle of children.
And this literally was a very special episode of Wizards of Waverly Pod.
You're so cheesy. I can't.
Wizards Pod YouTube channel. The link is in the description. And if you want weekly bonus content, go join our Patreon. The link is in the description for that too. See you next week.